Hi everyone, this is Henry and I'm the director of the film Out of Touch. Today I'll just be talking about a lot of the behind the scenes of how I made the film. Let's start off with the pre-production. I'd say the pre-production, the part that ate up the most of the time is the storyboarding phase. It took me around 6 months to complete. Being a filmmaker, you have to make the decision sometimes of keeping certain scenes and then understanding that there are other scenes you have to cut out. And everything you're seeing right now are bits and parts that didn't make it to the final film. Every time I made a storyboarding pass, I showed it to as many friends as I could, whether it's from my industry or outside my industry, to see if they're understanding what's actually happening. The storyboarding phase is also a great phase to kind of understand how long your film is and whether it is too complex or too simple. Next, we have the character designs. These are the characters of my film. I did a bunch of turnarounds and I colored them after. Before creating characters, I always like to create a inspiration board just so I could gather the style I want to go towards. After I got all of that kind of laid down, I played with the color script. You kind of like associate certain color palettes with each act, just so the film is unified and it goes through section by section, telling a story for each section. Again, later on the production, you're gonna have to find shortcuts to scenes that you don't need. So this layout was actually a scene that I ended up cutting out just because I didn't have enough time. The layout was a little complex and I realized that the story was still telling without this layout. Now we're going to talk about the production. So when it comes to the production, it's really hard to have the whole timeline of what's going to happen each week. To avoid this, I created a schedule just to make everything visual. So this is a great way to kind of understand what you have to do. During the production, there are a couple of phases you have to keep in mind. The first phase is finalizing the storyboard. You still have time to make any changes. Next, we have the rough animation phase. Then followed by the rough animation, we have the cleanup animation. And then after the cleanup, finally, you have the coloring and the compositing. So any lighting effect, dust effect, texture, you add it here. And here we just have a rough animation of a scene that really pushed me to kind of think about animation in the 3D world. And I found the scene especially kind of challenging, but I'm glad I went through it. Next, we have one of my favorite scenes that I got to composite. It was a scene of Harris falling into the sea. Everything was hand-drawn here. I used an algorithm that made the drawing bend into the curvature of a real wave, so that helped me a lot to make the animation smooth. But yeah, that's the full rundown in 2 minutes on how I made the film Out of Touch. Thanks again for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed.